we ended the year under budget. There aren't too many more expenses that are going to come in under the 2020 budget. It always makes Dan nervous when we stand up here and say we were under budget because stuff could still come in. Is he sitting there? Oh, yeah. Thought I could hear giggling back there. But it ended fairly well, and I just am so grateful for my people. We're gearing up this year. There's a new software that the state is implementing for to track voter registrations. We're in the midst of training for that. We've had some illness and some medical things keeping us not at full staff, so we've kind of been dealing with that. We've kind of had a resurgence of passports lately. It's been an interesting and welcome change. I'm not sure what's causing it, honestly, but I think people are starting to feel a little bit better and thinking about traveling, and we get a lot of missionaries doing that, but we also get a lot of folks looking to travel. We've had an increase in marriage licenses, and some of that's seasonal with school. We've had a few folks come in that we recognize. One of Commissioner Blake's children came in and got one, and we're glad for when we see familiar faces. And
just glad he's legal. That he's following the rules. That's great.
He's legal. He's a good kid.
That he didn't. I didn't have to hold his hand. That's wonderful. That he did it on his own. Fantastic.
Yeah. Happily, there hasn't been too much drama that we've been dealing with. But we've kind of had a good start to the year, and we're hoping things go smoothly and well for all the different pots in which we have our fingers and the plates we try to keep spinning. So, any questions for me? I'll get you some budget stuff next time, and I'll do a better job with that printed report. But
we appreciate it. It's not. As the clerk, we kind of talk to you every day anyway, so.
That's true. You have to look at my mug a lot, so.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next, let's have George Colson from Emergency Management.
Good morning, Commissioners. So, a guy I served in Vietnam with recently had a birthday, and wishing him a happy birthday. I said, stick around for another year, bud. It's beginning to get interesting again. So, looking at the two budgets, I gave you a summary of the 2020 and the 2021. We came in a little over $8,000 under budget on 2020. Most of that was due to, lack of travel and training, the inability to do any of that. As far as 2021, we're looking good. The only major expense I've had so far is in office supplies. I had to buy a new shredder for Stephanie, so that took a few dollars. So in recapping last year, my volunteers, my emergency communication and my CERT volunteers put in 1,373 hours of volunteer time last year. Iron County always outperforms all the other four counties in this region. We have a much more solid volunteer base, and we have some really dedicated people, and I appreciate that. We had in June, we had a more than just a practice. We had the protests in June, and Commissioner Blake, myself, the sheriff, and Chief Adams were in a meeting that Saturday that we were concerned about protests that were happening, and we had some intelligence that it might be happening here. So the decision was made to stand up my emergency communications people just in case we lost the ability to dispatch from the public safety building. My people stood up and were on station for about 8 hours, just in case we did. So that was a good thing. Now COVID. I want to start the COVID recap with a thank you and an acknowledgement. When the state put out the word to the county emergency managers that we would be getting CARES money from the federal government, I immediately went to the county auditor and the commissioners, and thanks to their foresight and their focus, Iron County was able to jump on this before just about anybody else in the state. And because we had great leadership in this county, Iron County got stuff that other people didn't get, and we got it a lot sooner. So I just want to acknowledge that we have a great auditor and great commissioners, so I appreciate that. Makes my job easier. So we got about $5.8 million from CARES. Of that, emergency management got $654,711.92. For that money, we got 2 hand washing stations, which have already been used at Stock Show and some other things. We got 2 900 square foot inflatable tents that are heated and air conditioned. They've already been used. IHC used them for COVID testing. We got 2 tent trailers, 1 36 kW generator, and that's for tent support, 1 56 kW generator, tent support, 1 34-foot mobile testing station, and a 1-ton truck as a prime mover for all our trailers, and 5 electronic signboards. So the county got some good equipment that will last us for a long time, and we appreciate that. Before we got the inflatable tent, emergency management, we arranged for a tent from the Church of Scientology for Intermountain Health, which they used for quite some time, and then took over our inflatable tent. PPE, personal protective equipment, gloves, masks, those kind of things. I jumped on the free FEMA bandwagon, and I'm still on it. To date, the county's received 33,690 masks, 35,300 gloves, 110 point-and-shoot thermometers, 31,820 wipes, and 646 gallons of hand sanitizer, and that's including my 330,000 gallon hand sanitizer hot tub that's parked over at the fire station at the airport. We also received gowns, face shields, goggles, Tyvek suits, and I continue to order as we put stuff out. I continue to order. The county has about a 30 to 45 day supply of all those things, so we continue to do that. The state put out PPE for the schools. Emergency management served as the point of contact for the schools. We served as the point of contact for business PPE. We had 22 businesses in Iron County that requested PPE from the state, and we dispersed that to them. I supplied PPE to the Paiute Housing Authority and also helped them develop a disaster fuel MOU. We supplied PPE to the county offices, law enforcement, fire, courts, DMV, and we assisted with John's voting. And we worked with public health to develop vaccination priorities for EMS, law enforcement, and fire, and we continue to make daily hospital reports. So that's pretty much it for...
That's almost enough wipes for a monk for a year.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
So, any questions?
That's a lot of
That's
stuff.
awesome. I'm
Not for
glad
me.
you grabbed that and took it by the horns, because it helped us.
Yeah, and I have almost daily communication with George, and it's, I mean, in all honesty, to look how far ahead we are of other counties, really from day one in managing this, we'd be hosed without George. Somebody with his experience and background in emergency management has been really awesome. Haven't had to worry about it. It's taken care of.
Well, I appreciate that.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
All right.
Thanks, George.
Shane, Mr. Shane Manueli from the Public Defender's Office.
Thank you. Good morning. So court is still virtual. We'll probably be the last ones to go in person because your appearance is required. It's not a voluntary thing to come to court. So we're still going virtual, but we did have meetings with all the community partners, players with the court system to discuss if we could start doing some mock trials to experiment with doing hybrids of virtual and in-person hearings. We've been asked as defenders to look for cases that would be appropriate to try first as we start to roll it out. It's going to be a slow rollout according to the judge, but the good news is we have started to really figure out how to handle things virtually that are not trial. So anything that could typically be handled just in court, the defense attorneys are able to get that handled. We're getting pretty proficient at it, trying to avoid any potential backlogs in the future as we do open up in person. But just as before, I always feel like we're still swimming. We're still keeping our heads above water and able to keep a handle on everything. We are a little nervous about when court opens and we do start having trials. I've talked to the county attorney about just meeting with the defense attorneys and the county attorney to see if there are cases that potentially just need some extra discussion where maybe we could resolve those as opposed to waiting for trial to come. And so I feel like we're able to work well with them, and we're just still working and plugging along. We'll be, like I said, the judge indicated that it'll probably be June or July until we start being able to do some mock trials and get some experimentation going with how trials will be done. Up in the 3rd District in the Salt Lake area, they have started those experiments. I believe they've had a jury trial. It was fraught with technical difficulties and errors, but we're trying. It's a lot of people to manage. When we're in court in person, we only need 1 clerk to do that. To have a virtual jury trial, it would take 3 clerks to handle everything and what would need to be done. So it's a big task to do, but we're working forward, and I think the public defenders are working hard to keep progressing the work so that we're not all in trouble at the end of the year as things do open back up. But any questions for the public defender department?
Not for me.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Appreciate your adaptation skills so everything doesn't just shut down totally. That's good. Who have we got next? Danny Stewart from Economic Development. Except, I skipped Jen, but we'll come back to you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. Wanted to begin my report just giving a bit of an update on economic data about Iron County that's compiled by the Utah Department of Workforce Services. I use this a lot in what I do as I interact with businesses, and I thought you'd find this interesting. New job creation in Iron County for the year 2020 was actually pretty good in spite of COVID, and I'll mention that in a lot of these different categories. In spite of COVID, we fared pretty well in a lot of ways. Before COVID started, we were on a pretty good trend of a couple of years of new job creation, new non-farm jobs through 2018 and 2019. That slowed down in 2020, but we did end up finishing the year with a net gain of 83 jobs. Now, prior to that, we were more in the 800 to 1,000 job creation for a year, so that was down significantly, but it was still positive growth. There were only 4 counties in the state that ended up 2020 with positive job growth, so we feel that was pretty positive. Postponement of the summer games, the Shakespeare Festival, losing all of those international travelers, that really took a toll on our hospitality industry. Our leisure hospitality service jobs slipped 10% and 270 positions. State and government employment, which includes higher education, showed an even larger decline than that. But most of our industrial sectors added jobs, including manufacturing, construction, technology, and others added jobs, offsetting the aforementioned losses. Unemployment numbers, our highest point of unemployment for 2020 was in April. We reached 9.3%, and that was pretty high. especially since we had been about 3% prior to that. Utah in April reached 10.4%. The U.S. average was 14.7%. So again, 9.4% is not what we want to hear, but it was better than the state average and better than the national average as well. Let's see, by December, the county's jobless rate had kind of flattened out at 4.5%. Still remains higher than the month preceding the pandemic. First-time claims for unemployment spiked in March 2020 after public health restrictions went into effect. Initial claims have since dropped and recently slipped below the levels measured during the recession in 2007-2008. As I mentioned, leisure hospitality services showed the largest number of initial claims of unemployment. One thing that was really interesting, though, is with the loss of those lower-paying part-time jobs in the service industry and the creation of higher-paying jobs in manufacturing, construction, and those other industries, our average county wage actually increased by 6% through the end of the year. So, I mean, increasing the county wage is always right at the top of my goals as economic development director, is finding employment that's going to pay higher. This is just an interesting way to show that some of those jobs in manufacturing, construction, and others, they do make a great impact on our communities, our county's wages. Building permits, you're aware of this. You've seen this all over the county with construction this year. Our dwelling unit permits, and this is just through November when these numbers were collected at the state level, but our dwelling unit permits increased 54% last year through November compared to the 2019. So that's pretty phenomenal, and those in the construction industry really know what a tremendous jump that was. The other thing that is a good indicator for us is that sales through, this is gross taxable sales, we ended 2020 with an 18% year-to-year increase compared to 10.2% increase at the state level. We can attribute that to a few things. There were a lot of online sales. People bought a lot of stuff online while they're sitting at home. But also our general merchandise stores, our Walmarts, Home Depots, our grocery stores all did really well compared to the previous year. I think part of that as well is with people not traveling, they were spending locally and also making an effort to shop locally during the pandemic. So economically, we turned out pretty well for 2020. Wanted to talk about a few of the projects that we're working on. I think you're aware of most of these, but if you have any questions, let me know. As you know, we've been working with Utah Inland Port Authority since before it was created, talking with folks about the transportation assets that we have here in the county with the rail spur, with the interstate highway, with the regional airport. And we continue to have very good discussions with them. In fact, since the beginning of this year, we've really taken a great trajectory working with these folks and with a company that does rail transloading and other types of things all over the country. This is a Utah-based company out of Utah County, but they have 50 transloading operations all over North America, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, where they can load onto and take off of rail cars for companies in a region. We've been working a lot with Washington County and with our own businesses in Iron County to get a survey of how many companies could benefit from rail service, even if they're not on the rail. And we're getting a tremendous response regionally and lots of great support. We anticipate the findings well, let me back up just a little bit. A couple weeks ago, we had the Utah Inland Port folks. We had this company here, and we visited with about a dozen companies in Cedar City, Iron County. And then we went to St. George and spent the entire day visiting with companies down there. And just from those 2 days, when we look at the amount of goods and products that are moving through this region, a lot of that could be done by rail. It could be a tremendous cost savings for a lot of companies locally. it could improve just the movement of goods and services, which is the whole reason for the Utah Inland Port project as a whole. Right now, we're working with the Inland Port to create a survey, hoping to get it out before the end of February, to all of our Southwest Utah region, to businesses that are shipping via truck or rail, or if they're sending or receiving products, we want to talk to them and just get a better idea of the volumes and types of materials that are coming and going. It's been really eye-opening to see how many imports and exports there are from this region. Our hope is that we can formalize a business case that this company could come in and start a transloading facility here in Iron County, at least make that announcement before year's end is our goal.
Where would they set up shop, Danny?
They would be, we're looking at several prospects of properties along the rail between Port 15 and Weco.
Okay.
So they're right now, by interviewing these businesses, then finding out the types of facilities that they would need to build, that will kind of determine the type of property that's going to work best for them. So we know that we have our hay producers in the western end of the county that would benefit greatly. Yeah, from that type of facility. We also have some gypsum and other mineral mining in the region that would like to be able to load. You'd be surprised at how many companies are importing products from overseas and selling them here. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands, of containers are coming in that they're having to come into the port and truck them up here. We think we could get some tremendous savings for those companies as well. So it's been a really cool project.
Aren't they shipping that gypsum to California, a lot of it?
Yeah, a lot of that's going
Almond,
to California.
Isn't it like for the almond?
Yeah, they use it for agriculture. They use it in cement. They use it in different products. And we're just doing all those studies now to find out at what point does it make more sense to get it on a rail car rather than trucks. And usually that's about a 400-mile distance where that really starts to make a financial improvement for those companies.
I have a question. So Salt Lake is also planning on doing, do we have to wait for Salt Lake to do theirs first?
You know, it's interesting because
I know they have some opposition that I don't think we have as much here.
Right. And, you know, when I met the director of the Utah Inland Port last August, when he was just hired, he was down here for some meetings, and we talked about that. And he indicated that wherever it makes the most sense is wherever they will put their efforts. Now, of course, they've been working on that northwest quadrant in Salt Lake City for a long time, and they'll continue to do that. That's developing. It's private, and there are companies going up there. They just want to be able to organize that space so that all the freight
But
moving in and out.
Ours is kind of separate than that.
It would run
anyway, isn't
separately.
it?
Mm-hmm. Also, just so you're aware, this transloading company, they're finding that there's a business case that they could come operate even before anything else is finalized with Utah Inland Port, if needed, which would even help us towards that port. And the Port Authority is still trying to determine exactly what is going to be the best way to tackle this statewide transportation system going into the future. So we'll continue to work with them, but I think we can accomplish quite a bit on our own with these private companies, even ahead of their schedule. So it's really exciting, very encouraging.
Yes.
I'll keep you up to date with that.
Okay.
Still been working on business recruitment. As you're aware, we had a company, GoEx, a plastic manufacturer out of Wisconsin, announced they were coming here in 2019. It's taken them a while to redesign their facility, but they've started construction on that facility, 125,000 square feet out at Port 15. It will be about 100 jobs once they're operational. We anticipate that building will be done the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
What kind of plastic products do they make?
They are plastic extrusion. They do sheet plastic that's used in a lot of different applications. If you've ever been to Genpack, part of their process is sheets, and then they move it from that stage over onto their other equipment to make the food containers. So these guys will make feedstock for other companies. A lot of it is used in graphic design. When you go into restaurants and see all those flat plastic that are printed on, that comes from these guys. And they also do some of their own packaging as well. They've been in Wisconsin for quite a long time as a family-owned company, and they just wanted to locate here to be able to reach their Western customers with the big savings on freight.
So also, or will they?
It will
They'll
be
have-
also. Yeah,
it'll
they'll
be an
keep that
also.
operation to serve the East and the Midwest,
Yeah,
but
that's
they were at that point where shipping,
with so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they just wanted to build closer to their
Great.
markets. There are a lot of companies out there through 2020 that have been kicking the tires and looking at different things. Not a lot have been committing yet, but we've got some great relationships and great communications with mostly manufacturing, some smaller technology type companies, but it's mostly been manufacturing that are interested for that same reason. It puts them closer to the Western markets. Some very small businesses, I mentioned this in my last report, smaller companies in metropolitan areas are intrigued and like the thoughts of moving out of the big city, and we've worked with several of those. There's a little company coming out of Vegas that's building a building right now. They're called Chaffee. They make a roasted cocoa bean product that's a coffee substitute. It's pretty tasty. We'll have to get you some when they're set up, but their building should be done in March. Smaller company, just a few jobs.
Where is that at? Located?
It's Fort Cedar area off of Industrial Road in Cedar City. But they do exclusively online sales. They fill orders themselves, and they also fill through Amazon and Walmart. So they've got quite a following. You're probably aware I've been speaking with a geothermal project in Newcastle, which is really exciting. Power generation project using that geothermal resource there.
Is that Grimshaw's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is
very
that going
cool.
good?
I think it's progressing well. We've had some really good meetings. In fact, we just met with Adam Long last week about some different things that they could do, and I don't know the timeline that they're on yet, but they've already done a ton of legwork and a lot of investment in that project.
I think they've already
Built a
drilled one
lot.
successful well, haven't they?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the resource is outstanding. It won't take away from those other users downstream. It's pretty isolated, and they figure they'll be able to generate about 24 megawatts around the clock, even after the sun goes down. So
That's awesome.
it's very
Are they
cool.
close enough to a transport? I mean,
That's where we're at right now. Is just
not quite.
finding all that infrastructure to get them onto the grid
Oh.
and reach those customers. Also been meeting with another solar company that's interested out by the Utah Red Hills project, a meat packaging company, some restaurant projects. We're not bored. We're doing all we can to stay caught up. So I appreciate that you named another member to our Economic Development Advisory Board. Mayor Chestnut will join us on that committee. Found that Enoch City has an economic development committee, and they've been doing some exciting things, and we're excited to pull them in at the county level. So we like taking more of a county approach to these types of projects. We're finding some really exciting things that could be happening in Bryan Head, in Enoch, in Parowan, and throughout the county. So there are a few bills that we're watching right now that could be helpful for our efforts here. One is Senate Bill 194. It's a Utah Main Street program. Could help as Cedar City, Parowan, as communities want to utilize their main streets better. There's another one, Senate Bill 65. It's potential amendments to the community reinvestment areas. You know, that the RDAs, the CDAs, the CRAs, they can't stay the
Acronyms.
same. So that continues to evolve, and we'll stay on top of that. And finally, there's one that has been in the works for several years. It's a rural economic development TIF, tax increment financing at a state level specific to rural. We've been able to utilize some GoEd programs for some of our large projects, but we're going to follow these closely. You know, they're all in the grinder for a few more weeks up in the Capitol, there could be potential benefits for us in our efforts down here. So we'll see how that goes. I wanted to make you aware I'm working with the airport director, Nick Holt. We're gathering airport leakage data to find out how we can better serve the region with our airport and find those people who are choosing not to fly from Cedar City and why those reasons might be. We're looking at some options for other carriers and other destinations as well. We have a great relationship with SkyWest, and they're actually helping us with some marketing and different things. But we are interested in expanding the services at the airport. That is really a big help to economic development as well. So I'm trying to stay as involved in that as possible. And then finally, you're probably also aware that the Gilberts are operating the mine. They've sent 3 or 4 train loads out of ore since they've opened the first of this year, and trying to set up a schedule to get an update from the Gilberts in the next few weeks. But we have been busy.
Sounds like it.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you,
Thank you,
everything
Danny.
you do.
Thank you. Let's come back to Jenny Bradbury and HR. Sorry, we skipped you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the best of all again.
Morning. In 2020, the Human Resource Department finished under our established budget, pending any last-minute payments out there. And there's no current anticipated budget concerns for this year. Hiring and recruiting. Since our last report, we've posted, interviewed, and hired for the following positions: 3 full-time Deputy 1 patrol positions in the Sheriff's Office, 2 full-time Corrections Deputy 1s in the Sheriff's Office, 2 full-time Legal Assistants in the Attorney's Office, 1 full-time Deputy 1 Attorney in the Attorney's Office, 1 full-time Landfill Technician, 1 full-time Chief Engineer, 2 part-time DMV Technicians, and several internal promotions within the county. Currently, we're in the process of hiring the following positions: 1 full-time roads maintenance worker, 1 part-time DMV technician, 1 part-time IT technician, 2 part-time fire chief positions in Burrell and Newcastle, 1 full-time Deputy 1 position for the Sheriff's Office Patrol, and 1 full-time IT web developer technician. And then at present time, we are currently posting and recruiting for the following positions: 1 full-time land technician, 1 full-time Sheriff's Office Building Department Code Enforcement Officer to be filled internally, 1 full-time Sheriff's Office Corrections Medical Technician Deputy, 1 full-time Sheriff's Office Corrections Nurse, 1 full-time Sheriff's Office Patrol Detective to be filled internally, 1 part-time Office Captain for Burrell Newcastle Fire Department, and 1 part-time Evidence Technician for the Sheriff's Office Patrol. Currently, turnover for the first few weeks of 2021 is 1.31%, and in comparison, 2020 and 2019 ended in 13.54, and 2018 finished in 13.1. Workman's Comp EMOD risk factor came in for 2021 at 0.76, which is slightly up from last year. Last year was 0.72, 2019 was 0.87, and 2018 was 0.92. So we're still kind of in a good trend there.
Those are good rates.
I was going to say, not anything less than 1 is a pretty good number.
Exactly. So
Right.
we're hoping that it stays that low. We've had only 1 small unemployment claim for November, with no claims in December, and 1 claim that just came in January. And then in 2020, PHP's overall medical loss ratio just came in at 74%, pending any new submissions. This should keep us in line to receive a nice rate reimbursement within the next few months that should be larger than last year. We're hoping. Fingers crossed. We've had a very successful insurance open enrollment in October, and I personally just want to thank Betsy and Carrie for their dedication and attention to detail during this process. They're awesome to meet with everyone face to face during the process, which is a great overall employee experience, making sure that everybody gets the benefits that they need. The Accident Review Board just met a few weeks ago, and we were able to cover all the accident claims for 2020, and most accident claims for last year were deer related. So nothing really. It was kind of sad. Every time we were like, another deer? Yep, another deer. So, any questions?
It's good.
No, and
You've been busy.
A little bit.
again,
That's how we like it, though.
we work closely with you, and it's Always a pleasure, and thank you.
Well,
same. You take on a lot of the burden, so we don't have to worry about it. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure we didn't skip anybody. Commission reports. Commissioner Cousins.
Thank you. The senior center's coming along. It's the interior's pretty much complete. I met with Terry Palmer and Dustin Carter, our contractor, last week, and we we shot some grades in the back, determined how we're going to do we do have enough grade from the building, which is good for some good drainage away from it in the back on the north side, and they should be able to get that completed. We're looking, and I talked to Commissioner Blake with the director there about some opening dates, and we looked at a grand opening on March 20th for that grand opening, and then we also talked about the April 5th opening where they would open the center to start using it again. And numbers seems like COVID numbers are dropping pretty good, and we felt like as I talked to Commissioner Blake and Curtis Crawford, felt like that the seniors need to get out and get active again, and so we felt like more of a personal responsibility thing. Mike, you can chime in on that too, but we felt like it'd be a good thing for them to come back. And
yeah, the clientele at the senior center is clamoring to come back. They're blowing Curtis's phone up, wondering when they can come back. And so since we've got the expanded square footage and a little easier to social distance and such, I don't see any reason not to, at least. And talking to Curtis, it's going to be kind of a measured opening. Kind of open certain things first, make sure everything's fine, and then move on into full programming as soon as we can. So.
Is that on the same side of 200 South?
Yes.
Yes.
Same. We just added on to the north side of the building, right there behind Canyon Park. So it's going to be a beautiful facility. It's 5,000 feet, and there should be installing the elevator today. Should have it done in about a week. So it took a while to get with COVID. Seems like everything's backlogged. So they finally got that in and are installing it this week. Another thing I wanted to report on. I've been on a state legislative call every week. There was a bill that surfaced a few weeks ago that I've been watching really close, House Bill 281. When it first came up, it was very vague what the purposes of it was. And doing some research and putting together a statement, I'd like to just for the record read this statement. I've sent this to our clerk, John Whitaker, for the minutes, but I read this on last week's call. Excuse me. And this will explain some of what's going on. I just said on that call I need to give some background on this House Bill 281 about county development activity to clear the record. One of the most serious problems we see with this bill is that it is a bad law written to address one situation vaguely enough to hide its intent while creating other problems due to the vagueness of the bill. I've been told Steve Erickson is the author of this bill. He is a conservation lobbyist and stated in his conservation newsletter this week that House Bill 281 addresses local approval of Cedar City's water grab. Steve Erickson represents a number of conservation groups, including the group which Beaver County hired to oppose Iron County in our water development project. Even my friend, fellow Commissioner Mark Whitney from Beaver County said in our February 3rd UAC meeting that this bill's purpose is to make sure one county can't steal another county's resources. Iron County is already over $600,000 into environmental studies to sustainability and responsibility and responsibly bringing less than 4% of the rainfall from the uninhabited Pine Valley and Beaver County to the growing Cedar City area 50 miles to the south. Utah water policy is clear that those who develop water resources and apply them to beneficial use in a sustainable way can use them in order of priority, and those that don't act and complain in times of shortage when the early bird is given priority. Those of you along the Sevier River know how 100 years ago Delta filed on lots of those rights and still reap those benefits today. And those of you along the Wasatch Front can thank your forebears for importing water for this morning's shower and shave. The Utah way is and always has been to reward those who find ways to use water before Mother Nature takes it back into the sky and it falls elsewhere. When it comes to HB 281, the purpose seems to circumvent a legal agreement signed by Beaver County in 2019, which allows Iron County access to those water rights in Beaver County, which were never filed on or developed locally in over 100 years. Iron County spent almost 15 years and over $1 million in legal fees to work through the issues of priority and beneficial use in relation to Beaver County. We believe Beaver County has conscripted the legislature and radical environmental groups to help them violate their signed agreement. Our own county issues aside, this bill will lead to dozens of lawsuits throughout the state regarding development of infrastructure and utilities across county lines, and will create an environment where only the lawyers win. As county commissioners, we suggest we oppose this bill, and it was voted on in that UAC meeting. If my memory serves me correct, it was about 67% to 33% to vote to oppose that bill, and I think the bill's pretty much dead. But I served on the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District Board for about 8 years, and was in the thick of this throughout the years, with the lawsuit between Sitla, Utah Unite, and Iron County and Beaver, and we did come to an agreement in 2019 and signed that agreement with Beaver County and Sitla and Utah Unite, and so we kind of thought that was over. But anyway, we're continuing to work on that project, and I'm no longer on that board, but I am a liaison to the water district, so I work closely with them, and that was just something I wanted to mention. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
My turn?
Yes, please.
So we had our my water meeting last week on Tuesday with the Conservancy District, and it turned out really well. We had a lot of farmers and ranchers. The turnout was good. We had some good pizza eaten by all, and we had some great discussions. After the meeting, I got talking to some of the sheepmen there, and they were concerned about our designated livestock trails and making sure that we kept those open. So when the sheep come down off of the face by the sea, the sheep trail that comes down off of there, and cattle also, but a lot of the cattle, when they get them down off the mountain, they truck them. But the sheep, it's really hard to truck them. And so they come through Cross Hollow, they go up over that hill or by Walmart, depending on which way they come. Anyway, and they've always called the Cedar City Police, and they have always came and helped direct traffic, got those sheep through there, either to the livestock corrals there by the Cross Hollow Event Center, or got them across Highway 56 to the Lund Highway, and then they were able to go out to their farms in the valley. Well, so Cedar City Police have always helped the sheepmen, and so that's always been a really great thing. For some reason, they said, well, we don't ever ask the sheriffs to help us. And I said, why? And they said, well, I don't know, but we'd sure like their help. And so it took one phone call, and I called Sheriff Ken Carpenter, and of course he said, oh, of course, we'd love to help them. Just give us a heads up, call the dispatch, and we'll come and help them. And so they were thrilled that, they said, well, we're glad to help them, just like the police do. So we've told the sheep people that they're happy to come and help them, and I think that's going to solve a lot of issues. I would ask the people of the county to be very vigilant and careful with those sheep coming through. Slow down. You can usually make your way through them if you just go slow. A lot of the cars just are going too fast. Everybody's in a hurry, and it's very dangerous because we have people on foot. There's horses there usually, dogs. The kids, the children of the ranchers usually come to help. So it's very dangerous. So I'd ask the county residents to be careful, mostly on Highway Lund Highway and 2300 are the main ones that they take the sheep on. So, also on the legislature, last Friday we had there was a hearing on HB 92. That's the with protecting the children from the sex changes and that type of thing. Rex Ship was over that. He had some fabulous people. I've talked about it the last couple of commission meetings, but he had some really good, couple of doctors, a couple of actual individuals that have gone through some of that type of stuff, and they were just really powerful. Then there was one of the legislature guys brought it up and kind of accused Rex of doing things wrong and illegally taking it out of committee. It was really a mess, and it was so sad because Rex has worked so hard on this bill to protect these children. And I'm just sick about it because I'm not sure where the bill will go now. It went back to committee, but I'm sure everybody told him, keep fighting, please, for the children. So there was another one that I have been kind of watching, HB 295. This is with Casey Snyder, and this is more on a personal note. This one is legislation to regulate the trail cameras for the hunters. We've had, and a lot of the agriculture people have had a lot of problems with these trail cameras. One of our waters alone, we had 18 cameras on one water. So if you don't feel a little intimidated by walking to check your water for your cattle, so I really feel like that we need to do something. I think they've pulled that part of the bill. There's another part of the bill that's baiting, putting out apples and that type of thing. And I think they're going to continue on with that. But I hope that they'll bring this up again. Nevada and Arizona have both made legislation on that. And I would hope that they would bring that up again because it is a huge issue. Not only it harasses, I feel like, the wildlife, it also harasses the livestock, the horses, the everything out on the BLM and public lands. I had a little trip with Bruce Anderson from the landfill. We came over to Parowan. So we have the equipment, and we're in the process. We'll bring one of the big cats over, and here in Parowan, we're going to clean one of their basins, their flood basins. We're getting ready to do that. The thing that I found out when I was talking to Bruce, which was I was thrilled, is that they'll trade us for an older garbage truck that will give us an extra garbage truck for the residential collection. And it's so cool because he says, well, it's an old one and it's old enough that there's no parts, but we've saved some of these older trucks, so we've got parts, and Cedar City has saved some, and so we can still work on these trucks. And then he talked a lot about working with the other entities of the county, the other cities, Cedar City, Enoch, all the different entities, and they work together. If something breaks down, they run out and they'll borrow one from the other part of the county. And I was just so excited to think that they would all work together that way. I think it's just awesome. So anyway, that's my report.
That's a real special thing that Bruce does, and we have kind of that spirit of cooperation. We were talking about that just the other day, and it sets us apart because rather than spend a whole bunch of extra money, we have the same trucks as some of those guys. We have, a spirit of cooperation.
They actually even order some of them so that they will be the same,
Yep,
and
that's
they
right.
get a better buying power
That's
also
right. That's right.
on equipment and trucks.
Our office does the billing for the landfill, and it's neat to coordinate on some of those things. Another thing that is really cool that Bruce has teamed up with Ryan Riddle, our Iron County Fire Warden, and Ryan has funding to put to get the message out about fire, whatever he needs to communicate, and it's a ready-made solution. We put it on the back of our bill, and it helps Ryan needs to get that message out, and it helps Bruce with his finance. I mean, they're just
Like on the prescribed burns.
or if there's a no burn situation or whatever, and so it's kind of being able to work cooperatively really makes a big difference. I think if you can have those relationships.
Yeah, I was
a good example.
I was thrilled when he was telling me about it. I think it's really a neat thing.
Some time ago,
Yeah, Bruce will refer to them as drug deals, which is kind of
Yes,
funny.
he does.
But he does a good job coordinating.
we had talked at one time about
Yeah.
moving the billing to online. Have we ever made progress with that? Saving postage and that?
That's really a better question for Nicole.
Oh, is it? Okay.
We actually have a couple of solutions. Vendors have approached us that I need to visit with the commission about offline probably and see about some of that. There's some cost in that, but I mean, over the years, Nicole has saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in her merchant fees by changing a few little things, and I think this is one of those areas where we might spend $5,000 or $10,000 on one of those services, but maybe save more on. I mean, we spend a bunch on postage and paper and envelopes,
Yeah.
and also my employees' time.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
like this. They take a great big sigh and go, okay, because we have this folding machine, and they're going to go. They put their armor on and go slay the dragon because it's a finicky machine. Oh, Nicole! Oh, Nicole's here.
There's Nicole.
So sorry, Nicole.
It would be super easy to get John set up to be online, just like our online payments are. And instant payments, in fact, they were talking with me last week, and they're even coming up with a way to, instead of us having to send paper bills or postcards, to shoot out text messages
Right.
too. So they're really coming up with some new convenient things that the millennials are gonna love, so.
Yeah.
Us old people, not so much.
You can still call and pay in person.
Okay.
We try to make sure we pay both.
Both.
And that's a good point. We don't want to do one thing at the expense of others, but I'm glad to know that. I didn't realize they'd come that far. So maybe you and Bruce and I ought to sit down because it's really his call. I just help him. So okay.
Great. I'll just be really quick. I've been working really closely with Danny in the economic development as far as our committee, as well as the interviews with local businessmen. I mean, it was really encouraging to see when you talk to somebody about being what their needs are as far as import, export, and to see their faces light up when they're like, "Oh, really? I mean, this is something that could really affect me." So that's been a lot of fun being involved in that process. We've been working really hard and closely with HR, Ryan Riddle it's our county fire warden, Chief Peterson in Newcastle, Chief Bouchard at Burrell, to get this part-time position up and running. And also, I'm not going to call it a drug deal. I'm going to call mine horse trading.
There you go.
That's a little later on the agenda. We'll talk about that. But economic development, fire's been really active in trying to get geared up for the upcoming fire season. There's just a couple of bills that I want to talk about really quick. And if anybody would like to contact Senator Vickers. House Bill 220. Last year, the legislature enacted basically a bail reform bill. What they did is take bail out of the hands of the judges. You go to jail or you get arrested. If you don't have the money to pay bail, we just let you out. There's not a bail. There's not a bail placed on these people. In the last year, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but even here in Iron County, we have cases where criminals were let go on their own recognizance and turned around and committed even worse acts and worse criminal offenses. We've been working really hard, both with the Police Chiefs Association of the state and the Sheriff's Association, to get that bill repealed. Not saying that there does not need to be some reform, but this turned into an absolute nightmare. The second bill that's making its way through the process now is House Bill 367. 367 basically takes away qualified immunity from law enforcement officers. What that means is if I, as a law enforcement officer, get into a shooting or something else that could possibly be litigious, which is everything that a law enforcement officer does, we don't, the county, the city, they basically don't cover them on their insurance. Officers would be required to either pay a bond in order to be a police officer or get their own liability insurance. We already have, it's a nightmare trying to recruit and get qualified police officers. This would absolutely kill that. This would change the face of law enforcement forever. I mean, anybody that's got any sense would never apply to be a police officer if they have to carry their own insurance. And there's a lot more to it. That is Representative King is the sponsor on that. There's been some meetings with him, and he's kind of admitted, well, I just threw this out there to see what the knee-jerk reaction of law enforcement was. He says, this probably isn't going to be a thing this year, maybe not next year, but down the road. He wanted to just test the waters this year, but just to put that on the radar that that could be coming. And it would...
To make our recruitment worse?
Oh yeah, it'd kill us. Our recruitment's already terrible with what the legislature's done with the retirement and everything else over the last several years. For instance, in the beginning of my career, when I tested with Cedar City Police Department, there were 40 or 50, 60, 70, 80 applicants. Now, really lucky to get 3 or 4. Definitely less than 10, and you can wash out at least half of those in a background check.
The jail's even worse.
Oh
I
yeah,
heard.
oh yeah. The jail's terrible. And law enforcement in general is bad. The jail really struggles to keep full staff. Even if we have a full testing pool, we weed them all out. There's been several times that we've had to reopen because we can't
Jen
get quality.
is shaking her head crazy.
Yeah, Jen can speak to what this would do, and we've had this discussion. So I just want people to be aware of that. That's kind of some of the legislation that's out there that can really be detrimental to our community.
Well, the governmental immunity's been whittled away a little bit at a time, and truly, it's not that people in government want to act with impunity. It's that you might make a decision that somebody disagrees with in your job, but they want to sue you for and it's a challenge. I mean, especially in law enforcement, but it's a challenge to get people to want to have a life of public service. And Commissioner Adams and I had this conversation. I mentioned this before. He says, "Oh, I'm a politician." I said, "No, you're a public servant." And I think we need to respect those who are willing to kind of step into that arena and do that. And it's a challenge even from on the non-law enforcement side, but especially law enforcement from an insurance perspective of just trying to maintain that liability coverage that we have, and certainly recruitment. So
Absolutely. That's all I've got. Let's we're going to take a break for a minute. Let's reconvene at 10:15. That's like 8 minutes. That'll give us time to get a couple of things done and hurry the process along. Let's be back at 10:15 so we can get through it.
Blue tab.
Oh, man.
Your name on it is a blue tab.
Okay.
When I was sick, we had all that solar stuff that went
Yeah.
through. Anyway, I don't know what happened to the documents.
Are you behind?
Adam Long. Well, Adam Long sent it to us, and he's like, "Hey," and so I don't know. We're just gonna do what he says. Yeah.
I'm going to go sign Carrie's book.
Yeah. No, this one's.
I'm way more
just
afraid of her than I am.
I get it, man. Just before you leave.
Because I've got to bail out. I've got to be back in Cedar by Monday.
Oh, geez.
So,
They have the four big ones, Granite East, Granite West, Enterprise.
Shane, are you good going first?
Yeah, I'll be quick.
Because we know you'll be quick, and that we can get you out of here. As soon as, are we good? All right, we're back in session. Going to skip to agenda item number 3 as in interest of time.
Thank you.
Mr. Manueli.
So this is a grant request. So as I indicated, we're doing a lot online, and as we learn how to work online and work virtually, we're also learning that some of our equipment just isn't what it needs to be. And so this is a grant request. It's a one-time funding through the Indigent Defense Commission. They have funding available for this exact type of things. So what we're asking for is it's a grant request to the Indigent Defense Commission for funding for computers for the public defenders, scanners, so that we can scan those items in, and then a 1-year subscription to DocuSign. And we'll be subscribing to DocuSign. One of the big problems that we're running into is we're getting things printed out or sending them out, and then our clients are not able to print those and sign them and scan them back.
DocuSign is awesome.
Yeah, I think it will really
So nice.
help with our work. And so it's a just under $10,000 request to get all 5 attorneys a good laptop, a good scanner, and DocuSign. One of the big pushes behind it is the court just issued a standing order indicating that all attorneys are required to have a computer that can have a good wireless connection, good microphone, good audio, good everything, because we just want to not run into those technical issues. If we are able to get this grant funding, the computers will stay in Iron County. They'll be funded through the state of Utah, but they'll stay in Iron County. So if one of the contract public defenders leaves, that equipment would stay for whoever holds that contract. It would be the property of the county, not the individual contractor or anyone to that effect. So I think it would be beneficial for the county, and especially working through COVID.
So they wouldn't have personal stuff on it. It would just be all the county stuff, right?
Yes. So the idea would be
So
just
when it turns over, they can just turn it over and it'll have all that data
Yep.
on it.
Last year we approved a grant through the IDC for Defender Data, which is a cloud-based practice management system. And so the idea would be Defender Data would be on that, and so the transition, if we do go to a new contract, would be very clean. We could have that computer with all Defender Data, everything on that computer already. I think currently, if we were to change contractors, it would be very difficult to get that information exchanged and moved on to the next attorney.
I had a question. As I was reading down through that, there was the amount of $9,995.82, but then down further in your other stuff, it was $9,865.32. It was $130.50 discrepancy there. I didn't know if there was a reason for that.
I think that's just a typo.
Okay.
I think originally we had different scanners, I think, and so that we changed the scanners
and
up
so
because someone needed a printer scanner.
On the written, it was written out on the lower amount.
Yeah.
But then up on your,
Yeah, I think we bumped, as I talked to someone, they said they could use a scanner and printer, and so I think that's the change, and we
Okay.
failed to
okay.
note that change here.
What is the correct amount?
The $9,995.82.
995.82.
Yes.
82.
Say that again.
$9,995.82.
Got it. Thanks.
So it'd be about $7,000 for computers, just over $1,600 for scanners, and that one printer, and then $1,600 for the DocuSign.
Okay.
About where it breaks out.
Ready for motion?
Yes.
I'll move to approve the grant application for an Indigent Commission grant in the amount of $9,995.82.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Can I get a signature today, Commissioner?
Yes. You bet.
Shane, you want to make sure you get me a copy of that?
Yes, I will. So I
Just scan it and
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Let's go back to item number 1, public comments. I remind everyone of a 3-minute time limit, and be nice in your comments.
My name is William Pressgrove. I've got a zoning question for you. You've got at least 2 dairies in the county, one out west of Newcastle and one up on I-15. It's called the Dutch Cowboy Dairy. And the one in Newcastle is zoned intensive ag, and that was done in 2009. But the Dutch Cowboy Dairy is, as you can see, is zoned A20. It's over 375 acres in the operation, and all of them, there are several little areas that are zoned A20 are blocked off. There's one area that's 160 acres, but it's still A20. Where's the consistency in the zoning where you've got intensive ag for one and A20 for another, even though it's over 375 acres? I haven't gotten an answer back on that. There are other areas like the Three Peaks Golf Course area. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's supposed to be in Tier 3 as a supplemental or something type zoning, but it's inside the proposed Tier 2 for zoning for the city. Why is there such inconsistency in the way things are done? The other thing that bothered me most was the fact that you've got all of these solar collection fields. Some of them are in A20, some of them are in industrial. To me, they are light industry because you can't run cattle on it. You can't produce anything agriculturally underneath them.
They do graze sheep under those.
Well, they haven't been able to do it where I'm at. I'm right next to Quichpaw 1, 2, and 3.
I know that Jake Benson, he specifically specializes in putting sheep under the panels where they graze and keep them.
They do it on some,
Take
not
down
all.
the weeds.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
Just take down the weeds.
And Weco is out there, and it's under industrial. I imagine that's okay. But it's just so incongruent, and the fact that you can get it's under C on the thing where you can get a
Conditional use? Or
conditional. Yeah, you can get a conditional use on anything, and so it really makes moot the definitions that they've got for the different zones when anybody can get a conditional use for anything in any one of the zones. It nullifies the fact that they've got defined uses for the different zones. Zoning needs to be reworked tremendously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing? My name's Butch Kramer, alias anyway. And just to let you know, I'm going to be talking about water issues. I know Royce is here. He and Marilyn were at our house. We had about 35 people in an area. It's about 2 miles square. And we had a lot of concerns, and we asked a lot of questions. And today, we haven't had a lot of things resolved. Let me go over some of the problems. About 4 years ago, we had a water meeting with the state. I've been to 3 others since then. Back then, in 3035, they were going to be taking away water from people in the county in 3035 from the old water. New water was 3030. Since then, it's now down to 3025 for new water, and 3030 for things. That gives me 4 years to find out what I'm going to do with property that's going to possibly lose water or not. and we have no issues, no idea what's going on with the state. The state's figures seem to be very inconsistent. I think Royce is going to bring that up. But the other thing that I am concerned about is loss of tax base. One of my friends that lives across the street from me has over 80 acres of land, and they said if they take the water away, my property is worth $0. And same thing with me. I spent a lot of money on a well. It's gone. And all I can do is thank everybody that has been involved. I know none of you guys were up there at that time, so I'm not hitting you. Second thing that really concerns me is with what you've been talking about, like industry coming in. Port 51 thing, or whatever it's called, does use a lot of water. I don't care what you say. They have figures on that. Where are we going to get the water if our water is being taken away from the people that live out here? The other thing that, I'm sorry, this is a little confused, is that it seems like we're getting a lot of different statistics, and I think Royce will address this. We got it coming from the state, we got it coming from the U.S. Geological Survey, and we got it coming from Royce. Two of the three pretty much agree on the figures, the other one doesn't, yet that's the state. What, to me, the state has is this Ponzi scheme. They sell you water, supposedly, that you can use, yet they can take it away from you at any time. When they do take away the water, do they put it in never to be used again file? No. They put it back in, it gets sold, and we, the public, gets reamed. It's time to quit these games. Like I said, the figures that Royce will give you are pretty good. There is water in this county. It's just that we're not taking it from them. Some of our biggest water users are not the farms, it's the cities. This city has doubled in size since I moved here. When we bought our water in 2002, we never had the state contact us about proofing up or anything. 2 years ago, I went to sell my property, and we lost $14,000 if you go by the market value. Now, Cedar City is growing like crazy, and instead of putting reductions on where people can grow and the size they can grow, they're growing up. I had a realtor tell me, we sold a house in town, you saved money. And I said, what do you mean? You have a basement. You saved money because you built up. Wait a sec. I said, so now we could put 2 families in here and I'm saving water? Doesn't work that way, folks. I've been in this business for a long time, and it's just a mess. So, there are a lot more problems that I don't have time to address in 3 minutes. What I would like to do is say, hate people coming in and saying, you're giving us a lot of problems, no solutions. Let's get some groups together that can sit down and actually talk and find out what's going on. Royce has done a good job with the water. We need some people that know something about legislature so we can get to them and find out why the water can be taken away from you, why a Ponzi can be set up. Bertie Madoff must be sitting there saying, boy, I wish I was in that group. The other thing we need to do is start thinking about zoning and planning. At one time, I was really adamant about going to planning and zoning. I've worked with 5 different states on planning and zoning, and I've never seen something so confused as what we've got here. I would highly recommend getting some groups together to discuss and try to resolve these problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Butch, just one comment. Have you met Paul Monroe with the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District? Have you met Paul?
Just in meeting.
Have you? I would recommend you go and spend some time with Paul, and I'd be happy to sit down with you too, to talk to you about some things I understand. But Paul's office is there on Main Street and Fiddler's Canyon Drive, and he's really accessible. If you want to just walk in there anytime, if he's there, and just visit with him, I think he could address some of your concerns.
There's another issue with your water too. I really feel for Butch because he's got a beautiful, wonderful home, and he has a bad water right, and it just makes me sick because it is a huge problem. It makes me sad that he's having to go through this because somewhere something should have been done about that so that he would have known. I don't know, how long have you had that property? When did you buy that property?
In 2013, 14, somewhere in there.
So not that
But
long.
I have the one that I lost the water on was in Hamilton Court. I bought that in 2002.
And it's totally gone.
You guys, you talk to realtor, they can't tell you where to go get 20 acres. It isn't gonna turn into a subdivision because of your zoning rule. They don't talk to you about where the water is. I talked to the one guy in Cedar, and we were just walking on, he says, yeah, I'm new here. What do you know about getting 20 acres? I said, it's not worrying about getting 20 acres.
It's the water.
About getting water.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And if the state keeps up what they're doing, we're in trouble. And this whole county is in problem, just like St. George is in problem. That water doesn't exist. I worked along the Colorado River. I know what's going on there. Most of you don't know this. The tribes have more water rights than any state along that whole thing. And you think they're going to give up their water rights without paying for it? You're nuts.
Another thing is that the Water Conservancy District is supplying the water for your new, at the Peevler Place, the new children's home. And that pipeline, in fact, I had a fellow call me, and I lost his number, and if he knows, I would appreciate him calling me back. Will you come after and tell me so that I can get a hold of him? Anyway, it goes right in the back of his property, and if he is willing, he can go through the group home and access that water there. And any of those other subdivision people, they put a big enough pipeline in there that to help them pay for it, because it's a huge amount of water that they're putting over there. So if any of those people in that subdivision are wanting to go off, you have to bring water with you, good water, right? Which isn't going to help you that way, but you.
Most of the people out there don't have good water rights. That's the problem. This is all new water out there.
Yeah.
And the problem is, Marilyn, if you spend $70,000, $80,000 for a well to go around to put out, now we got to go buy water.
Yeah.
Where are you going to store it? Because the state said they're going to come in and fill our wells. I was there when that was mentioned. If that happens, my money went down the drain with the wells. And not only that, if they take it away.
Butch, will you come up and speak in the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Problem.
Well, we just.
But if they do take that away, here's the problem. You can have water, Butch. You've got to go down and buy it from the state, haul it to your property, and use it that way, unless you want to go on a pipeline. I don't want to go on a pipeline. I moved out
You've
there
got
to
a
use.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I used my well, and here's the problem. The state does not allow you to have cisterns or water storage on your property.
Right.
So where do we store it? Every day I go in to get my water so I can bathe and shower. This is, there are so many problems that people don't seem to be mentioning. I just wish they'd get down as a group and say, let's do it. And in talking to your guy, the two meetings I went to that Water Conservancy, I felt like I was being blasted for just bringing up a suggestion. And I don't like that. I worked for the government for 26 and a half years, and federal and state or city for over 3, which I worked on small water systems. And I've never seen or been treated like that in my entire life, nor would I have done that to the people that I worked for. He's working for me, not for himself.
Thank you.
All right, let's care of that. At this point, we're going to step out of our role as the Iron County Commission and convene as the Iron County.
Mike, did you want to? These guys are ready to present.
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
wanna-
Present.
Oh, what did I?
It's number 2.
Yes, number 2.
Sorry.
I just skipped right over it, and I knew, and I had Shane go first, so you guys could have more time. So
how much time do I have?
As much as you need within reason. How's that?
Well, I can talk to you for several days, as Paul knows.
I know.
So I'm going to start. The main reason that I'm here is this is kind of a last ditch attempt to help the county and the cities within the counties counteract the in-placed groundwater management plan. And so I've got 3 slides, and I can do that in 2 minutes. But since you said I can talk longer, I'm going to talk just a little bit longer. Scroll down till you see my companies. I have 3 companies. I just want to introduce you guys to these companies because they have, and this is specifically for Danny. We need to spend some time talking about this. Walden 3D, we had a meeting last week. I brought a group to town that are talking about putting a $500 million project in Schertz's Canyon or someplace else in the county. And I think that it's really quite exciting. I'd be glad to go over this, Commissioner Bleak, with you if you want to. These other 2 have seen it. Walden also has developed some indexing technologies that have the potential to change what's called blockchain, which is the basis behind Bitcoin. And that has the potential of creating a whole bunch of jobs in the county. Dynamic Measurement has done a couple of projects in the area. One of them includes a project we did for Jay Grimshaw. We demonstrated that where the geothermal energy is coming, we take lightning strike databases and we map geology based on that. One of the things that you might be interested in that we have developed is we have the ability to predict where lightning's going to strike. We can use 21 years worth of lightning strike databases to predict the hot spots that are controlled by telluric currents in the subsurface. If you're worried about fire, you want to know where those hot spots are so that you can put some protection in place. I've thought for a long time, and last time I presented to the county commission, I suggested that they should look at this as something that they do on a countywide basis. And the last one has to do with natural resource exploration, and we've got some things that we're doing that are quite exciting in that standpoint. So I'm here to talk about safe yield. Safe yield is a political issue, and it is something that I have no idea how to handle. And so I'm just going to do my best to present the data. The state engineer made a presentation on the 8th of December in 2016 where they talked about critical management areas, and that those are groundwater basins and in which the groundwater withdrawals consistently exceed safe yield. They give a definition for safe yield, and this is a political definition. Safe yield means the amount of groundwater that can be withdrawn from a groundwater basin over a period of time without exceeding the long-term recharge of the basin or unreasonably affecting the basin's physical or chemical integrity. All of the work that has been done by the state engineer and the other groups is based on models. These models are based on assumptions. I believe that we have good case to question some of their assumptions. If we go to the next page, the safe yield is determined for Iron County to be 21,000 acre-feet per year. They state that the current well depletion is 28,000 acre-feet per year, although the potentially approved well depletion is 50,000 acre-feet per year. These numbers have been repeated a lot, so everybody believes them. Everybody believes that those numbers are absolutely correct, and that's where things are at. But those numbers can't really be defined that well, and they're not absolute, and they need to be questioned, seriously questioned. David Anning, who is a friend of Gary and mine, spent over 20 years working with USGS as a hydrologist. He has looked over, he was going to be here to this, but he had a real bad migraine this morning, so he couldn't come, but he's available to meet with anybody that wants to. The bottom line is that he says that these numbers cannot be measured this accurately, not with the things that are in place. And so that's a big problem. Gary has spent quite a bit of time talking about subbasins and how we should split into smaller subbasins for safe yield. For instance, if we take the 6,000 foot elevation contour basically along highway, the interstate, a little bit more up the canyon from that, but basically along that, and take all of the water up the mountain and make that a separate subbasin. It could be, from a geologic standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. We have all seen the letter from Teresa Williamson. If you look here, it specifies, she basically gives a call for somebody to file suit against them. She says the adoption of this plan is subject to section 73.515 Utah Code, which allows an individual to challenge any aspect of the plan by filing a complaint in the appropriate district court within 60 days after this notice. 60 days is almost up, as it says at the top of the thing. The groundwater management plan was adopted January 11th, so the groundwater management plan has already been adopted by the state engineer, and there is 60 days from January 11th, which means until the first part of March, to file a lawsuit. This talk is a call for the county commissioners to file a lawsuit to get the state engineers to prove the numbers that they're saying are the basis of state yield. I believe that they can't do that, and I'll show you why.
Royce, just let me interrupt a little bit. I'm a little confused. Why now? I mean, I was on the groundwater management plan committee I think we met for at least 3 years, and we had open and public meetings every month.
I came and talked to the commissioners. I came and talked to Paul several times.
Paul Monroe.
Paul Monroe.
There's too many Pauls around, sorry.
I'm sorry. I forget. I'm talking to Paul. And I have a son named Paul that I talked to last night.
I think we have 5 Pauls on that board.
I basically felt like it was a waste of time, that nobody was going to listen to me. And so I haven't pursued it. Gary showed me a piece of data a couple of weeks ago that made me say, well, we ought to at least make one last chance, because there is an opportunity to change the state plan. And so that's what I'm going to show you today.
It would just been a lot cheaper if we'd have tried to do it. And it sounds like you did, but did you come to the meetings and?
Oh yeah, I've been to meetings when you were. I've given several talks at your conservancy. I used to, when Dad helped start the Conservancy District, I came to the meetings when it was very first started. As I told you, I was very much against the pumping costs of Lake Powell pipe water coming all up the Black Ridge. Just the pumping costs alone was too much of a tax burden for my cousins that live in the valley. And so I suggested to Eldon that they go after the MX missile water, which shortly after I suggested that was when the original filing was. So I've known about that water, and I've encouraged that from back then. The cost of the pipeline is something else, but I've tried to make my voice heard, and I figure that eventually somebody will listen.
When we had my water meeting the other day, Nathan Moses pointed out that in their writing of the ground management plan that there is an out in. They can change that if new something comes, they can change it at any time.
Well, I know the state engineer can, and that's why I'm making this kind of last appeal for you guys. If you want to see the documentation, where John pulled this up from is my website. I've kept that website since about 1995, so I've got everything documented that I've done relative to groundwater since 1994, 1995. So you can scroll down and look at that all the way down to the bottom and see that I've been interested in this and I've been talking about it, but I feel like I'm an outsider because I spent 40 years in the wilderness of Texas, and and even though I grew up in the valley, and so anyway, this is what I want to talk about today. So the next page. Well, let's see. What are you looking at there?
I just scrolled down from that letter. This is
okay. So this is the groundwater management plan. I've got all 3 pages of the groundwater management plan that has been adopted in here so that you've got it for reference. I have 2 copies of this. If you want me to leave the large copies with you, you're welcome to them. But the key point is in this page is the safe yield for the groundwater basin is estimated at 21,000 acre feet per year. And my contention is that nobody knows those numbers that accurately and that they don't have a way to measure it. And what Gary showed me a couple of weeks ago, which is the reason that I'm here talking, is on the next page, and that is the major study that was done by Lynette Brooks, whom I've met with and talked with and spent time with, of the USGS up in Salt Lake. In that, the summary of her report, which is a 2005 report, she says recharge to the unconsolidated basin fill is by seepage from unconsumed irrigation water, streams, precipitation, and by subsurface inflow from consolidated rock and adjacent areas, and is estimated to be about 42,000 acre feet per year. Now, if the USGS said in 2005 that we had 42,000 acre feet per year, how is it that the state engineer is saying now that it's exactly half that number?
I think they're basing it on declining aquifers in those.
You didn't have half of your recharge, and a declining aquifer is not going to affect the inflow. This is the inflow into the valley from precipitation, from the creeks, from that kind of stuff. And it doesn't go from 42,000 to 21,000. I think that the numbers based on Lynette's work and based on this report, and I've got the report on a USB drive if you want the full report from the USGS, but I've included all of the summary in the next few pages. Based on the fact that the USGS said in 2005 that there's 42,000 acre feet coming into the valley, why is the state engineer saying now that it's half of what the USGS said in their major report on hydrology? I had that report before. I hadn't read it as closely as I should have. Gary's the one that pointed it out to me.
What year was that report?
This report's 2005.
If I don't understand that, because if we've got that much coming into the valley, why are aquifers declining so bad in Quichapa and the Enoch Graben?
The aquifers, the water moves relatively slowly.
Right.
I've shown you in previous meetings and other places that we have age dates on water over on the Quichapa side, where we show that you've got recent water that's coming out of the creek, and then you've got 500-year water that's coming just before the fault, and then you get on the other side next to the fault is the Harmonies fault on the west side of the valley. You come on the other side of the fault, close to where the Cedar City water is, and you have 21,000-year-old water, which dates exactly to when Lake Bonneville was farther north than here, and it was a wetter time, and Quichapa was much larger than it is now. That water movement, just 500 years. What was happening in this valley 500 years ago? That's when Escalante came here. We talk about this water movement. It doesn't change between 2005 and 2021. That's 16 years. 16 years, water doesn't move that fast. And if we had inflow of 42,000 acre feet in 2005, we still have inflow of that. Let me just show you some more pictures, okay? The next 2 pages, the next page is just actually a copy, a screen capture of the summary of that report, and then there's 2 pages of there's another page of references cited, so that you have the entire summary included in here. And then you have pages 2 and pages 3 of the groundwater management plan. So you have everything that the state has said. And then on page 4, you go down another page, another 2 pages. Keep going. You got a map, which you've all seen. This is where Gary's talking about we should break this part off as a separate area. And I've got all kinds of geology that I can talk about and teach you about, I'll just do a really quick summary. The beds in that part of that's where most of the rain falls. You've got up to 35 inches of rain per year that falls in the top of those mountains. Okay, we have about 10 to 12 inches of rain that falls in the valley. In that part of on the other side of the Hurricane Fault, in that part that Gary wants to separate off, the beds are dipping about 5 degrees to the east on average. You can know that because you can drive up the canyon and you can see the ice flows just past where the landslide happens. The ice flows are always on the west side of the road because the water's dipping, the beds are dipping that way. If you study those beds geologically, those beds go well underneath the severe river drainage system. With the safe yield definition, it really doesn't matter. As long as you capture that water within your safe yield boundaries, you should be able to do things. But the issue is the numbers that are used to define safe yield are wrong. They're based on models. And so the safe yield numbers need to be larger. If the numbers are larger, we can then go up in that area and we can drill additional wells in the Cretaceous rocks and in the bedrock, and we can transfer water rights from the valley where the water's being produced too fast in the drainage basin in the middle of the valley, and stop the subsidence that's happening in there, and we can move the water either by pipe or through the existing water channels that come off of Coal Creek or Spring Creek or Canara Falls.
Excuse me, Royce, I just want to hand this to Jonathan. This just is the water that's present to the east of the life. Okay. Anyway, we've talked enough about that. Let me just show you a couple of things that I've done since Gary showed me this 42,000 acre feet number and made me think that we had a chance to do something.
I'm trying to remember, and I remember being in a lot of meetings with you, Royce, and I appreciate that. Did you bring up the fact that you wanted this split off?
No, that's something that Gary came up with when he showed me the 42,000 acre feet. Okay. When he first told me, I said it's not a good idea. Okay, because if you break that off and you look at the rainfall that's in that area, and you look at the rainfall that's out in the valley and over on the quartz monzonite on the other side of the valley, and you figure what the amount of rain that's coming into that part of the area, it means that you're gonna if your safe yield in that part of the valley is going to be so much lower because you don't have the rainfall from up the mountain, that it's going to require more water to be taken away than it is right now.
So they're averaging it as well.
Yeah, they're averaging it across the whole thing. They're treating the water that falls up the mountain as though that water is going to make it down into Cedar Valley in the next year or two, and it's not going to make it to Cedar Valley ever because the beds are dipping in the wrong direction. The only way it's going to make it to Cedar Valley is if we drill some wells into that stuff and bring the water down into the valley.
We get a little water from Coal Creek, but it's not a substantial amount. It's discussed in the USGS report. It's on the order of 4,000 acre feet total.
How deep do you feel that would be? How deep you'd have to drill?
Well, we have a beautiful geologic picture when you drive up the canyon, and you know that I'm talking to UDOT as you're requested, and you've seen the material, and it's actually on the website, so I can have him bring it up if you want to. But if we look at the White Cliffs are Cretaceous rocks.
By the slide,
where the landslide happens. They're Cretaceous rocks, and they're sandstone, and they're very soft. And what happened was that we shut down the water that was being drained by the coal mine, the Coal Creek coal mine, spelled with a K and a K. And when we shut down the water from the Coal Creek mine, the water built up in those cliffs. And as the water built up, it made the cliffs less sturdy, and they calved off just like icebergs. And so starting in the 80s, we had the first landslides. And so we had a series of landslides that have happened since then, largely because they shut down the water coming out of the coal mine. Why did they shut down the water coming out of the coal mine? Because it had some pollutants in from the coal. And they were concerned about polluting the water in Coal Creek. Those pollutants probably would be really good for agriculture. So there's, and I don't think we get any of our drinking water from Coal Creek. So I think it was a mistake to do that. But we can't go back and fix that. We just need to know that that's happened. When they built the most recent landslide was about a $10 million fix, and what they did as part of that was they took all of the beds and that had fallen off, and they created this big pile of rubble. And then they built a catchment basin up above that pile of rubble. And that catchment basin is so the next time it calves off, it'll calve off and catch in the catchment basin and won't in theory, down. it won't take out the road again. The issue is, and it's, I mean, the drought's a good thing from this standpoint. The drought has kept it very dry. But those rubble beds, when we have a wet year again, and we will have a wet year sometime before those of us in this room die, because change it happens all the time. Yep. It's right. I mean, we could talk about that forever. The fact that there's no sunspots right now, and it's affecting the cold that we're seeing in Texas and so on. There's all kinds of things that people don't consider when they talk about all this stuff. When those rubble beds get saturated in a wet year, they're going to move. The Department of Transportation has tilt meters up there, and they say that those tilt meters are enough to predict when it's going to start to move. But I assure you, if those rubble beds get full of mud, and especially if you get something to calve off into that catchment basin, it's going to take the whole thing down, and it's going to be a lot more expensive than the last time. It's going to be a $15 million deal. So
when
to
I
answer your question, how deep do you have to go? You actually go uphill. If you go and drill some horizontal wells uphill from underneath the road, uphill into those rubble beds and into the straight cliffs, and drain that water directly into Coal Creek. So it's a negative number in terms of how deep are you drilling.
Yeah, I understand.
But then if you go up to Woods Ranch or Sheepherder's Canyon, both of which places, I mean, we did our best to use every tool available, including taking a water witch up there, which I have videos of the water witch talking about how much water there is at Sheepherder's Canyon and at Woods Ranch. If you drill from there, you're going to drill down to the same level as the straight cliffs that are underneath that, because you drive up above the straight cliffs there. So those wells would be a few thousand feet to 6,000 feet, something like that. You can dump that water again into Coal Creek. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Anyway, I'll talk more about the Cretaceous in a minute. The key thing I want to talk about is the numbers that are the basis of what the state engineer does their thing on. They're doing their thing based on what just happens to be 50% of the USGS number of the amount of inflow into the valley. So it looks like they took the 42,000 acre feet per year and divided it by 2 and came up with 21,000 acre feet per year.
Because they're averaging it with the west part of the valley, or?
No. The 42,000 includes the west part of the valley.
Does the USGS number include the mountainous areas that are
yes,
wetter?
It does include. It includes the mountains, and it includes
very small proportion. It's on the order of 4,000 acre feet. What they assign. That's Coal Creek mostly.
And that's because of that surface water.
Yeah, that's surface water they're talking about. And you have to realize from a geologic standpoint, we've got this big fault, the Hurricane Fault that comes down, and a spur of it is here in Parowan. We have the same thing that's happening in Parowan Valley. I'll show you in a minute. In Cedar Valley and in Escalante Valley, we have the valley fill, which is basically alluvial sediments that have been deposited off of the mountains and filled up the valleys. I was working for Mobil in 1978. They ran a seismic crew across these valleys. I was in charge of the geophysics on that seismic crew. We got over a mile of sediment in Cedar Valley. I can show you pictures that show that from the seismic. We got lots. We can drill a lot deeper. We can pull a lot more. There's lots of water down there, and I don't think we're going to get into salinity like we have in other parts of the world as we go deeper, because of just the way it's this isolated basin. But the hurricane fault is basically any water that might try to come down into the valley that doesn't go east on the dipping beds is going to hit that hurricane fault, and it goes south, and that's the reason that there's so much water that St. George has been able to pull out of the Navajo sandstone to the south, is because they're getting water that's coming from us. Jay has drilled a couple of wells there down the hill from the Black Ridge, and he's shown that there's tremendous amounts of water that are moving right down that area, and that's all coming from here. Gary, did you want to talk about this, what he's put up?
No, I just wanted them to have that data. That just shows why we believe we could get a lot of water out of the east side.
So anyway, you have that data now. So if you go back to my thing and then you scroll down, you want to go look at the very top part of that. And so what I've done here is I created my own GIS system, and this is just using Excel spreadsheets. I took a picture of the amount of rainfall that happens in Iron County, and then I put that in the background, and then I built these cells on top of that. And these cells have a specific size, and then I just you can see the contours there. So everything above the contour that you see, you can zoom in on a lot so that they can actually see the and scroll back over so they can see where the. Can you go to the right to my right?
Possibly.
Well, just go down. Just go down. You'll see it. You'll see the same thing as you just go down.
Oh, now it's mad at me.
It's mad at you.
I've
Rolls
angered the
up on you.
computer.
Computers own us.
Well, I'll just walk up and show you.
There it is.
Okay. So you see the numbers in there. That's 10 inches of rain per year that's falling in those cells. And all of that's within the 10-inch rain contour. Then you have 12 inches, then you have 14 inches, and you have 16, and so on. So I just took the amount of rainfall that's in there, and if you look at the number, that's 22,488 cell inches per year. If you divide that into cell feet by dividing by 12, it's 1,874. These are the numbers up in the very top left corner there. If you take the size of the cell at the right latitude, it turns out to be 451,000 acre feet per year just in rainfall. 451,000 acre feet is a lot more than 45,000 acre feet per year. One of the biggest things that are in these models that the USGS and the other people do is called transevaporation. The models that they're using, as near as I've been able to determine, are the same models that are used for transevaporation in Louisiana, which is a different kind of vegetation. The vegetation is going to move a lot more water than it is in the desert. The desert vegetation is going to move a very small amount of water compared to that. Anyway, if you take 10% of the rainfall that I count, that gives you 45,000 acre feet, which is about what the USGS says. If you take 5% of the rainfall, that's the number that the state engineer gives. And so my bottom line is that I think that we really need to challenge this 21,000 acre feet per second. And I believe that the state engineer told us in their letter when they announced the adoption of the plan that the only way that that's going to happen is if there's a filing in a court. And I think that it's probably not a problem just for Iron County or the Cedar Valley Drainage Basin or the Parowan Valley Drainage Basin or the Escalante Valley Drainage Basin. I think that this is something that's being faced all across the state, from Moab to whatever. And I think that it's very important that we get the people together talking about this and really understanding what's happening. I'm going to spend the last 3 or 4 minutes just talking about the importance of bedrocks. If you look here, here I've shown the three major drainage basins that we have in the county. The Escalante Drainage Basin, which has been under a water management plan for, 10 years now?
Probably.
The Cedar Valley Drainage Basin, which is green, and the Parowan Valley Drainage Basin, which is blue. And each one of those, what's outlined in the colors, is where the unconsolidated sediments are. The unconsolidated sediments are the tridal material that's come off the mountains. And that's where you have that's where sediments settle. That's where you have the fissures. That's where you have the rapid drawdown. That's why you have, 300 feet, I think, in Escalante Valley, some places. But certainly 150 feet in parts of the Cedar Valley Drainage Basin, and the fissures that are happening down by Enoch. I mean, those are problems that need to be addressed, and that needs to be addressed by limiting the drilling that's occurring within that part of the basin, which is causing the water to happen. If you look on the next page, I've got numbers in terms of the percentages. So in Cedar, 39% of the area is covered by the valley fill, and 60% is covered by the bedrock aquifers. And we're here to talk about Cedar more than anything, so you have those other numbers if you want them. It's all been on my website forever. If you go to the next page, it shows the extent of the Cedar Valley Drainage Basin. So you see where the unconsolidated sediments are, and almost all of the wells that are producing water in the valley are coming from this. I mean, one of the things that the state is not doing is they're not measuring the amount of water that's being pulled out of those wells. We really don't even know how much is being used. They use satellite imagery, they use how much green there is, and they make estimates. It's all a model, and those numbers have to be suspect. That's kind of the bottom line. If you look at the next page.
Sorry.
You went too far?
No, I'm stuck on this. Hang on.
Anyway, there are two aquifers that I've been talking about since I moved home. One is up Cedar Valley, and it's the Cretaceous rocks that are coming back up. That's where the straight cliffs are. The next slide that I had that I wanted to show you was the extent of those Cretaceous rocks. And then there's the quartz monzonite, fractured quartz monzonite. Okay, so this is he's gonna scroll down on this, and it'll show you.
Okay.
So Royce, while he's doing that, just a couple points. I mean, like I said, we had years of meetings, so this just barely came up.
No, the only thing that came
boundary of splitting the boundary, the basin.
Well, Gary suggested splitting the boundary.
Gary, I wish you'd have come sooner and talked about this with them, because it's expensive to go back and sue them now. We've been working on this for I think 3 years.
Well,
Why didn't this come up sooner?
It did come up in some of the meetings, but I don't think it's going to be expensive just to file a suit. Then we got months and months. We're to listen to your lawyer here. Months and months before it'll even come up, and we'll have a chance to put together information.
And as Marilyn said, the state, once they see that we're questioning the numbers, they'll go in and look at those numbers, and they have the right to change the plan anytime that they want to. So what we're asking to do, the state has specified in specifying that this was being implemented. They also specified the only way you can do anything about it is to file a brief in the court.
And I'm happy to meet with you and Paul and those and talk about that. You know, how long do we have? 60 days? So when's?
We have until March 11th.
Okay, so let's meet and talk about it. But I've been to every one of these meetings for years, every one of them. And we talked about deep water at one time. You know, there's more water deep, but I brought that up many times to the state engineer, that he said just because you find new water that's deep doesn't mean you can have it. You may not. It may be going to somebody else. It may be flowing to St. George. It may be flowing wherever.
It may be flowing to St. George in at the end of the millennium, but.
Well, that's the point, and that's the point we've always had. Is you've got to legislatively change the law, because just because you find new water, whether it's a woods ranch or deep, you've got to have the rights to it, and they will not give it to us.
And that's because of the definition of safe yield And that's because of the definition of the amount of water that comes in. But the number that they're using, the 21,000 acre feet per year, is half of the number that Lynette Brooks published from the USGS is coming into the valley. And that, to me, is enough to get the state engineer to look at this in more detail.
Well, and I'm happy to look at that, being, working on water, but they're just looking at our Quichapa. I think when did the city start drilling wells out there? In the 70s? In the Quichapa well field where the Cedar cities drilled most of their wells? I think that I think when they started
Wells out in the valley.
in Quichapa
Yeah.
area.
Well, I drilled one right up against the mountains at Quichapa in 2012.
Well, I think they started many years ago, and I think it was like the 70s.
Water from just
But
between Quichapa
yeah.
and the mountains.
But I know I think when they started out there, it was about 30 feet, and I know it's about 130 feet or more now. And that's what the state's looking at, is the declining aquifer like this, the graph. And they said if that can ever level out with our recharge projects or anything else, then we can look at this plan and change it. But until when you look at the Enoch Graben, it's doing the same thing. So they're looking at the graphs. I mean, there may be 40,000 acre feet coming in somewhere, but and I know it takes a long time to travel through the strata. But
well, one of the problems in the unconsolidated sediments is once you've pulled the water out of the rocks, they settle.
Yes,
that's what's causing the fissures. Once it settles, you're never going to put water back into it.
Yep.
You're never going to get
you
water.
do permanent damage to your strata.
You've done, and that has happened in the shallow part where the wells have been drilled in the unconsolidated sediments throughout the valley, and throughout this valley too, and throughout Escalante Valley too. That's a problem. But in my world, from a geological standpoint, the things that you do, and I have said this since I first moved home, and it's all documented on my website. You just move water rights up the mountain, and you pull from those from those bedrock aquifers, and you have the same amount of water. The issue is that nobody wants to do that because of this safe yield. And the safe yield definition of 21,000 acre feet per year coming into the valley is stopping anything from happening to solve the problem in terms of the untapped aquifers on either side of the valley. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Let's get together and meet with Paul Royce.
Question back here. Come up to the mic. Yep. State your name again.
Alias Butch Kramer again.
I'll take one.
Paul, just to your comment, you said 60, 80 feet, something like that?
130. I think that's about where it's
Okay.
at.
I live out there in that area, and within a mile of us, we've heard, in the last 5 years, we've had 11 people that have dropped their wells. The minimum, and I think Bill is one, is 220 feet. I'm at 320, and I'm now pumping sand. We've got 5 city wells out there. 4 of them are running constantly. They are pumping more water than that entire 7-mile square area could ever pump in a year. So what Roy said is that water may be there, but it's certainly not coming in and filling up the aquifers. And like he said, the more it compacts down, the more problems we're going to be having. So I really, I don't know if the state's been out there. I know they haven't come out and talked to me or any of my neighbors. So what's going on? This is what I'm saying. We've got to do a lot more on this because it's going to affect not only us who lose our property or land. If they start, like Marilyn said, take it from the pipe, all we're doing is taking it from Paul to give it to Peter to give it back to Paul again. It's ridiculous. And that shouldn't be happening.
What is the priority date of your water?
64, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
And that's a problem. We need to educate, and Carson Reed's here, and he's a longtime realtor, but we need to educate the realtors in this area too. When they sell, I had somebody else call me the other day, and he bought a newer water right, and it's those are top. I mean, so here's the analogy. Here's the analogy. Water rights it's like a 55-gallon drum, okay? Mm-hmm. And let's just say there's holes poked all over that drum.
Yeah.
And there's water at the top, and there's water flowing out all the holes. Each hole represents a water right, okay?
Yeah.
You can never lose a water right, but as that water drops in the barrel, there might not be any water coming out of the hole, right? You may not get that water, and that's the problem with the, and you, as you get to the bottom of the barrel, you've got the 1890 water rights or whatever we have in the valley, and that's what most of the farmers have. It's a private property rights issue. They own those waters. They've held them for a long time, and they have rights to use that. They have more rights to use that water than somebody that bought it. And going back to your comment, it really is the states back after World War II. They issued water rights. They were passing it out like candy, and they over allocated these basins. It's really their fault, but now we're stuck with the problem, right? And so, but by law, the state engineer has to come in and say, look, I'm going to regulate this water whether you like it or not, because we're all going to be in trouble. So yes, and I don't know if they've ever admitted that they messed up, but I think they have. But they over allocate. So the later water rights are the ones that they're going to start taking away, and not taking away the water right, but you're not going to get any water.
Now, they are taking water rights. Mine got taken away from me because I didn't proof up. And I said, how do I proof up when there's no electricity out? This is another piece of property, no electricity out there, nothing. I can't put in a well because there's nothing to pump. And it got taken away. So yeah, it can be taken away. And like I said, if it got taken away and then not be able to use in this upper tier again, take all those, get rid of them, and let's start renegotiating what does exist, because it's eventually going to get down to the older water, the 1800 water, and it's going to be gone too. Not in my lifetime, I know that, but you know, it's still, someone's going to start thinking about. We got people coming in here. Like I said, I personally have two really good real estate friends, and they're both brokers, so they're into this. I ask them, what about you guys telling the people that are coming, oh, we aren't going to do that, that's their responsibility.
That may be some legislation that needs to happen.
Yeah, right. And like when I worked for the city of Albuquerque, when you, because we also worked for Bernalillo County, when you came in to get a well, you had to have a card that you went up to the state and said, here's the amount of water you can buy, this will be yours forever, and we can't take it away from you. Then you went to the next building and zoning committee, and they signed off and said, here's what your zone says. This is what you're going to have, and unless the city gets out there and annexes your property, that ain't going to change. That doesn't happen in this town. Planning and zoning is really a disaster, because you now can take your zone 3, or at least what it was 3 years ago, and take it and put it into a subdivision. They don't have to meet any of the...
Yes, they do. They have to bring water. They have to bring good water with them.
They have to bring water, but listen to me. They can take, because I have a subdivision just south of me.
You try to do a subdivision and bring your 1964 water, they're not going to take it.
No, what I'm saying, the water was there, but instead of taking and keeping that area a 30 or 30-acre lots minus roads, you're down to 4, 5-acre lots. Does that mean they're not using more water? The heck yes, they are. It's just like the city. It takes in more people. It's going to use more water, and we got to solve the problem.
Well, we're working on that. So we just built a dike across Quichapa. We're running water. The water that used to evaporate out of Quichapa, we're now going to pipe it to some of the ag users and have them idle their wells. So we are working.
My question to you on that, Paul, I'm not an ag person, but my money's going to do that, right?
But that'll help you. The water that would have been evaporated is going to those ag folks, and they're idling their wells, so they're not pulling more out of the ground. They're using what would have been evaporated. So we are working on things. We are trying to make progress. Thank you.
Thanks. You know what Wichita means?
Did you have questions for me?
What's up?
Did you have questions for me?
Let's get together and meet with Paul. I mean, so yeah.
All right. Now we will move on to item number 4. We'll convene as the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency to handle the next couple of items, starting with number 4. Turn the time over to Danny Stewart.
Thank you. It's, I think this is going to become one of the signs of spring, like flowers and other things. We're going to be seeing me at these meetings with these requests for these solar projects. So as you know, we have multiple utility scale solar projects in the county that have agreements for local tax increment incentives. And we ask them each year to follow the contract that they have with the Community Development Renewal Agency, to do what they said they were going to do in their original agreement. They need to ask me before April 1st and demonstrate that they've done what they said they were going to do in their agreement, and then they request their reimbursement on the property taxes they paid in May and in November. So we've got 3 of those today. They're separate items, but they're all requesting the same thing, approval. Each of these, item 4 is the Three Peaks Community Development Project Plan, CDA. Item 5 is the Utah Red Hills Community Development Project Plan. That's also a CDA. And then I have this one down as
Sun Edison.
Sun Edison Phase 1, which is the Quichipaw 1, 2, and 3. And it's also a CDA. So these are the earlier ones. I believe each of these, well, the Sun Edison and the Utah Red Hills are in year 3 of their agreements. And I didn't check, but I believe that the Three Peaks is in year 2 of their agreement. But I've included in the packet the documentation that each of these have sent to me with the worksheet based on their contracts. They've sent me the documentation that demonstrates that they've complied with their half of the contract, and I'm just here before you today to seek approval for the reimbursement based on the contracts that are signed with these groups. If you look through the documentation, that they've been able to demonstrate those points that are on that cover page for each of these projects.
Do we need to do them individually? Can we do them together?
I think you probably, well, we've got them as separate agenda. We could combine them on the agenda, I think.
Let's just do them individually, but let's do them all now.
Yeah.
So
Do all those, okay.
if there's no other comment or questions.
Yeah, it's only these 3 that we have today.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's
what
what
I meant, yeah.
Mike meant.
Yeah.
Do them
Yeah.
Separate.
Not all of them, just all of the agendized.
Making Dan nervous
items.
back there. You want to come up and tell us the amounts, please?
I gave
Teach you to
Dan a
pipe
heads
off
up
from the
that-
back row.
Do we need to put that in the motion, the amount?
Peanut gallery.
I didn't think
I
so.
don't think Dan's buying me lunch today.
Three Peaks is $737,920.56.
Utah Red Hills.
Red Hills is $593,362.76.
Sun Edison 1.
Sun Edison is $77,767.94.
Basically, what we ask them to do, and these are all a little bit different in the agreements, we just ask them to show that they are living up to their agreements. Most of them, it's just showing that they are in compliance with the conditional use permit. It's that they are in operation as agreed to, and that they are paying their taxes on time. And this comes back to them as a reimbursement on taxes that they paid in tax year 2020.
I think it's important to note that this is based on the incremental growth because of the project, and the money coming back is money that they've already paid, that, like you say, is just being reimbursed at the percentage based on the
Right, and it is just a percentage of the taxes that they paid. It's not a complete reimbursement. In the case of these CDAs, it's those percentages are different based on the size and the contract, and those are changing. Those have changed as we've done more of those. These are all among the first that we did.
So who has checked on them? The engineer, the building department, who
For those who do that need compliance with the conditional use permit, and that's 2 of these, that is Reed who sends them that letter. Mm-hmm. Not all of them require that, but those that do, Reed is the one who sends that letter of verification. That's included in the packet.
have passed off all what they've agreed to do.
Right. Well,
on their
he
conditional.
signs off on the conditional use permit. I sign off on the other things. So I'll review all the other documentation that comes in, including Reed's letter,
Okay.
when that's appropriate. So I'll just read all of their invoices that they get from the purchaser, which in these cases is Pacific Corp, that demonstrates that they're operational. And then they send in their receipts on their property taxes that they've paid to the county to
And then they
demonstrate
get
that they've made those payments.
percentage back.
Correct.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. I mean, if there's no more questions,
Who's up? You or me?
I think Marilyn's up.
I'll move for approval of tax increment payment for Three Peaks Community Development Project Plan Area for 2020.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll move to approve the tax increment payment for the Utah Red Hills Community Development Project Plan Area for 2020 in the amount of $593,362.76.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I will move for approval of tax increment payment for Sun Edison Phase 1, 2, and 3, right?
Sun Edison Phase 1, which is
Just,
Quichapa.
just one on that one,
Yes.
Quichapa. Community Development Project Plan Area for 2020.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, I'm slacking here.
All right. We'll now reconvene as the Iron County Commission. Number 7, I'll handle number 7. This is discussion and possible approval to financially participate in the purchase of a fire truck for Bryan Headtown that will also benefit unincorporated areas. So this has been a conversation between the county and Bryan Head probably for a couple of years. They've kind of been working towards getting a new Type 6 engine. Type 6 engine is basically a brush truck, a smaller vehicle that can respond to smaller fires or get access into mountainous areas and stuff a little easier than it is to get a full-size engine in there. It's primarily the reason for this truck is to service unincorporated Iron County and the Meadows Ranches, and I don't remember the name of the other subdivision.
Island Meadows.
What's that?
Lake Estates.
Yeah, Meadows. Yeah, yes. But so this is where the horse trading comes in. As we've been talking about this for a while, and Bryan Head has saved up a considerable amount of money, more than half. These trucks generally run anywhere from $150,000 to $180,000 a piece. Bryan Head has saved up considerable, but they're about $45,000 short to pick that truck up. So they asked for our help. In return, they have a Type 4 engine that they don't need anymore. This will kind of replace that. Canaryville, who services the majority of Canaryville's service area, is unincorporated Iron County. Canaryville does not have a Type 4 engine, and they need one. In the West Desert, in our conversations with Newcastle and Burrell,
This is where the horse trading comes in.
right. So we in these fire chief meetings that we've been having, trying to work out the personnel issues, I asked Vernon Beauchard last time we were out there. I said, "What do you really need? Is there anything else you really need?" He says, "I really need a Type 6 engine." Which is basically the brush truck. They don't have one at all at their disposal, and so they don't have proper equipment, and they get a lot of lightning strikes and other reports of smoke out there is kind of their main volume of calls, and they don't have proper equipment to respond to those. They have to respond to those in a large engine, or they get some guys in a personal truck with fire extinguishers. So, Canaryville needs a Type 4 engine. Burrell needs a Type 6 engine. Canaryville has an extra Type 6 engine that, that they're willing to cut loose in exchange for the Type 4 engine. The bottom line is we'll be able, this is an ask for $45,000, which will provide Bryan Head with a Type 6 engine that they need to cover and respond to unincorporated Iron County. It'll provide a Type 4 engine to Canaryville Town, and we have all the MOUs in place and all the paperwork in place. We work with them really closely, and then in turn it'll provide a Type 6 engine out to Burrell where they don't have one. That's long story short. And this has been worked through Bryan Head Town Council, Canaryville Town Council. Everybody is in agreement. And we do have monies in trust accounts and those accounts have been open for years. They really haven't been on the radar. Our auditor, Dan Jessen, pointed out earlier this year, I think he's probably had this conversation with all of us, trying to close out those accounts. There is enough money in the Burrell account to cover this and still have some left over for some other smaller equipment needs that they have. So this wouldn't be general fund money. This would actually come out of that Burrell trust account. And ultimately they'll get a Type 6. They couldn't, the Type 6 that Bryan Head is getting is basically a showroom model that they're getting quite a deep discount on, and that discounts about $145,000 for the discounted model. So for us to outfit Burrell with that need would cost us 3 times more.
So what will our outlay of funds be?
45,000.
Even?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what they asked for. I told them,
okay,
better ask for what you need. He
complex
said
is that what sounds more like a drug deal than a
exactly. That's I mean, this has been a daily conversation for like a month, trying to get all this worked out.
Oh, good work. That's awesome. That's great.
When does that ever happen?
Right.
That everybody
great.
gets
Good
taken
work.
care of.
Right. Yeah, we're going to benefit 3 agencies that all serve Iron County for way less than we would pay to benefit one agency if we had
Hopefully
to do
we
it.
can build Newcastle another addition to their fire station so they can park it, right?
Right.
You ready for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I will move to approve to financially participate in the purchase of a fire truck for Bryan Head Town that will also benefit unincorporated areas to the tune of $45,000 even.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I thought about voting nay just because all the fire chiefs are like, is it going to pass? Is it going to pass?
I had opportunity to visit with Chief Allred, and he was pretty excited about the prospects of the whole thing. So
Yes.
I think this falls into that same category as some of the horse trades, the drug deals that Bruce does, and figure out how to maximize benefit.
Yeah, this one fell into place really good. Move on to number 8, consideration and approval of fiscal incentive grant from the State Division of Parks and Rec, Color Country OHV Trail Maintenance Shed, fiscal year, blah, blah, blah. The grant will allow the county to purchase a prefabricated shed, 12 by 20, and place it in the County Roads Department compound on Bulldog and Kitty Hawk in Cedar City. The shed will be used to work on the OHV trail equipment, signs, markers, and to store small equipment used for trail maintenance. Mr. Worthen.
Hey, you read about it, my whole spiel.
It's your whole spiel.
So that's what I'm here for. We put an application in about a month and a half ago and just got word last week that the application was approved. So I'm here to get the contract signed so I can send it up to the state and have them sign it. Then it would be in effect.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. You ready to move?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Go for it.
Move for approval of fiscal incentive grant from the State Division of Parks and Recreation, Color Country OHV, Trail Maintenance Shed. The grant will allow the county to purchase a prefab shed, 12 by 20, and place it in the County Road department compound on Bulldog and Kitty Hawk in Cedar City. The shed will be used to work on the OHV trail equipment signs, markers, and to store small equipment used for trail maintenance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is approved.
Good job.
Could I get you signed that? Send that to the state.
You
Can
bet.
I just say it's good to see you upright, Mike?
Yeah, you look good.
Color's good.
Know what Mike was talking about when he forgets things. Because I can get in half sentence
Go on.
and just go.
It's weird, isn't it?
What do I?
It's
Weird.
really.
What do I
weird.
use for an excuse?
Yeah, I need an excuse too.
Yeah, it's weird. And this is off the top. While Jen walks up to take care of the
Thanks,
next, when Nicole, when you gave your report last commission meeting, when you gave your department report, I couldn't remember your name. I sat there and looked at you for like through your whole report, like, I know it starts with an N. I think that's improving. There's a little improvement, but that's how weird it is.
Scary. All right. Hi again. We'll just do each department and then kind of go from there. In the assessor's office, Liz Vallow was selected from a prior recruiting and selection process to backfill a newly vacant part-time DMV technician position, effective date March 1st, 2021. And then also in the assessor's office, I've had some discussions with Karsten Reed about how he would like his office to run more efficiently. I'll pass some time on to him because I think he can fully articulate what his needs are for the
I wonder,
department.
maybe the commissioners could consider the part-time hire. and
Sure,
then-
first. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, I'll move for approval of Liz Vallow as a part-time DMV technician, and this is a backfill of a vacant position, effective date March 1st, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. I'll pass the time to Karsten, and then if you have any questions for me, feel free.
Okay, thank you.
Karsten Reed. So I'll just kind of give you an overview of we'll get to the packet in a little bit, but an overview of kind of what's happening in our office and in kind of the state overall. So, I mean, these middle tier and larger tier counties really have, unprecedented growth. These counties are growing, and ours is growing too. Our office has really some tremendous and valuable employees. Just recently, for example, Rex Dungan worked towards getting his ad valorem general, which is the highest designation you can receive, and it requires a bunch of education and tests and submitting a bunch of sample work that has to be reviewed and approved. And I think there are fewer than 25 total assessors in the entire state that even have that designation. So it's sort of indicative of the quality of assessor that you can have when they put their back into it, so to speak. In other counties, the way that they've dealt with growth, for example, Uintah County, which is a third of our size, population-wise and parcel-wise, they lost a few people, and then they hired a whole bunch of assessors to sort of accommodate for their growth and then the loss of a couple employees. So they are at our size. They have exactly the same size office as we do, with a third of the population and a third of the parcels. Cache is another county that kind of utilized the same method. They lost some assessors, their county grew, and they're a little bit bigger than us, but their office is nearly double in size and in terms of the number of the assessors. Washington County did it a little bit differently, and so did Tooele, where they restructured. Instead of just hired a whole bunch of assessors, they restructured their offices. Tom had a lot of foresight down in Washington County, and then Tooele County, she copycatted a little bit. What they did is they tried to create efficiencies by creating lead positions and reorganizing their office so they didn't just have to hire a bunch of assessors, which is kind of the two different paths: either hire a whole bunch of people or try to reorganize and be a little bit more efficient to do that. We've obviously, lost tremendous and valuable employees, not just in the past assessor who had tons of knowledge, but just lost another assessor. And I think when these county employees leave, they take with them just a tremendous amount of value. Dan, left, and he's working in the private industry. Ostensibly he's interested in making more money, so that's one of his motivating factors. And so we're kind of left in a situation where we have to figure out what direction we're going to go in our office. Do we try to hire a bunch of people? Do we add some lead positions? And my personal thought is that the direction our office is going to go is not to sort of replace this position, but try to create the efficiency through restructuring our office. And so that's the purpose that I'm up here today, is to request that those positions that you have in front of you are approved. The goal, we will definitely eventually have to hire additional assessors. I mean, the county's growing, and so that's just a workload issue. It's a dynamic job. There's a considerable amount to do, and at some point the burden will be so heavy that people will have to be hired. But I think we can delay that by moving in this direction, and that's why I'm bringing this to you today. I'm asking you to move to create these three positions, and these three positions are, in a lot of offices, you're recreating work by not having a specialization. So by not, in big offices, one person does all of this very specialized work, and then it's not recreated by every other assessor, where you waste a bunch of time trying to figure out clerical issues, data analysis, statistical issues. You have people that specialize in exactly that. It's tons of, and you can kind of read through the functions and requirements, but it's quite a bit of additional work and responsibility. And the idea is that these three new positions will allow for us to sort of delay a little bit of growth, hiring a bunch of people, and obviously give opportunity in our office for the current employees to fulfill those roles. So the roles are statistical data services lead. There's a lead appraiser for FAA land, and then a lead appraiser, assessor rather, for personal property and clerical, with the duties indicated you've received. So that's the
Your
request I'm
pending
making.
position, you already have those people, right?
So we have people in the office that could fill these roles, but these roles don't exist currently.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's...
So you're going to have to put them in
Yeah.
there.
So these are the three positions you're creating.
Creating these three positions.
There will be a pay increase for that position, right?
Each position would be, well, in some cases. In some cases, it's not. It just depends on the particular assessor that applies for that position. So,
How do they feel
Commissioner,
about that?
Dan had a comment.
Dan?
You want to come up, Dan?
so because we're not replacing the position that was just vacated, I don't actually know, Dan. Probably eventually, when it's necessary, but I don't envision doing that, hopefully, for a few years. So the employee that left made over $20 an hour. This would be $40,000 less on our budget, maybe.
You're not replacing him. You're creating new jobs which you're going to fill with current people.
Correct. So potentially, yeah.
So traditionally, and the county has a personnel policy that says this, when somebody's job description changes, you sit down with Jennifer and you figure out where they fit. And if that job puts them on a different range, not a grade, but a range, then the personnel policy says they either go to the start of that range or 5%, whichever is greater. So is that what you've done here?
Yes, that was basically, those range, basically the ranges that we put on the job descriptions are the starting range.
But in essence, it would, not filling the position saves the county. I'm guessing, but about maybe 40,000 a year, ish, maybe, but yeah,
Plus
roughly, yeah.
benefits.
Plus benefits.
Yeah.
Which is
That much more again.
quite a bit more.
Plus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pace, in some cases, could be significantly, but I feel like the net.
And this model doesn't come without precedent in the county. I know this was before my time, but I understand the landfill did something similar to this. And we since have done the same. We lost a position in the building department, and we restructured that and did some similar things. So it's not without precedent, and if it can make you more efficient, I applaud that.
That's the hope, the goal is to be more efficient, and I think we will. I think these roles you'll see will create a significant amount of efficiency in our office.
These employees are willing to take on the more.
I think.
I
think everybody in that office, like I said, there's a tremendous amount of experience between the people that work there. I mean, Brian's a general appraiser. Michelle came from a different state with, really a ton of background in assessing. Rex has run, big operations in mostly the West Coast, and then has achieved, this really high designation within our county or state government rather. Exilda's been here quite a long time, has tons of experience. So these are people that are definitely. Everybody in the office is definitely capable. Trevor has an accounting degree. He's, mathematically inclined. There's each individual person is actually a real asset to the county. Braden is as hardworking and industrious as there exists in that office. Each person I feel like has tremendous value. One of the things I'm trying to focus on and just is increasing education. Our roles require just kind of a substantial amount of education. So Teresa just got back from continuing a little bit. She's advancing in her licensure, and so we're trying to focus a little bit on education, make our office a little bit more niche oriented, so that people have really defined roles. But I imagine that in the future we may need to do something similar to this, but we also will probably have to add in employees at some point. But I think for the moment, this is an effective use of the county's.
So you're asking to create
resources.
these 3 positions, and then you'll put it out to
hire,
do an RFP, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Request for what's the acronym? Anyway.
Post the job listing.
All right. Would entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval of a departmental new structuring in the assessor's office with Karsten Reed in charge.
I'll second that and just mention that, just to add to that, per his flow chart he's given us, showing the pending positions, 3 pending positions created.
Yep.
Is that right, Marilyn? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Carry on.
Good job.
Thanks, Reed.
All right. In the CJC office, originally the elected supervision structure within that department, we had the county attorney's office overseeing the department first, and then the commission representative second. A few years ago, the elected official supervision was switched for just the commission representative only, overseeing that department. And at this time, after just kind of looking at what other counties within the state of Utah are doing, as well as kind of just best interest of the county, I'm proposing to change the structure back to the county attorney's office and support elected official position over the CJC with the commission representative second.
Entertain a motion.
Okay, I will move that we approve that an elected officials will now supervise the Children's Justice Center, and that would be our elected Iron County Attorney Chad Dotson, correct?
Correct.
And myself.
And
as
then
the
to add to that
liaison.
motion, Commissioner Wood would be the liaison to the commission, correct?
That works.
Yeah. Okay. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right, in the fire department, Wayne Peterson in Newcastle and Vernon Bushart in Burrell are the chiefs there. And I'm requesting a status change for those two positions from a volunteer status to part-time status beginning February 22nd, 2021.
I will move on that, and I am thrilled because I think this is something that we really needed to do. We have had issues there, and I'm thrilled and they're both great people. I know them both. I'll move for approval of Wayne Peterson at part-time Newcastle Fire Chief, new position, effective date February 22nd, 2021. Should I do both?
Yeah, go ahead.
Move to approve Vernon Burchard as part-time Burrell Fire Chief, new position, effective date February 22nd, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, in the IT department, Erwin Figueroa Granados, I hope I'm saying that correctly, was selected from the most recent competitive and recruiting process to backfill to fill the new position, part-time IT technician, effective date February 22nd, 2021.
Okay.
Call for motion.
I will move to approve Erwin. How do you pronounce that again?
Figueroa Granados. I hope that's
Erwin
correct.
Figueroa Granados.
There you go.
As a part-time IT technician, effective date February 22nd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I apologize to Erwin if he's listening.
I think he's downstairs. He went on a tour a
He's
second
been
ago.
around out there. I saw him.
In the roads department, Trevor Johnson was selected from the most recent competitive and recruiting process to fill the new part-time IT. Actually, let me back down. Full-time, backfill the full-time roads maintenance worker position, effective date February 22nd, 2021.
Move for approval of a new hire, Trevor Johnson, as a full-time roads maintenance worker, backfill of a vacant position, effective date February 22nd, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, last but not least. In the sheriff's office, Skylar Davis was selected from the most recent competitive and recruiting process to backfill a full-time Deputy 1 patrol position, effective date March 8, 2021.
Okay, I'll move to approve new hire Skylar Davis as a full-time Deputy 1, and this is a backfill of a vacant position, effective date March 8th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Move on to non-delegated items. Do we have any prairie dogs or county board discussion today? I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and help and everything else today.
Marilyn,
Thank you.
did you announce that you have some lunch in there?
Oh, everyone, I've got lunch in there, so be sure to come.